Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial. This is Christina from Pixiedrops Backdrops, and today what we're going to be doing is working on this sweet little newborn that I definitely shot specifically for digital compositing, and I want to show you just how easy it is once you have her cut out and you've matched the lighting to drop her into no less than 4 backdrops within a few minutes time. So the reason why I've chosen these backdrops is A, the layer, and B, the background color. The direction of light isn't really that important. I know that I can flip this backdrop or I can flip the baby so that the direction of light is matching. So for instance, in this one, I can see that the shadows won't match because in baby's image, the direction of light is top and left, and I can see that from the shadow being cast from her nose and down here on her cheek. And the shadow's coming this way in this image. So what I'm going to do first is flip this over. And let's check this one. Same thing. The direction of light is coming from top and right, and we need it top and left, so I'll just flip it over. That's image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And in this one, funny enough, it's exactly the same thing, so I'm just going to do the same thing, image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And lastly, we have this image here where it's a little bit harder to figure out the direction of light, but not impossible. And what I can see from the shadowing in this image, I can see a shadow over here. I see a shadow right here coming off this lemon. And because there's writing on this box, it wouldn't make sense for me to flip over this particular backdrop. So what I'll do instead is when I get there, I'll flip the baby. But first and foremost, what we're going to do is just talk a little bit about why I'm shooting this way. I know that when I have a baby in the studio, I can do all of the poses I like on a beanbag and props that I happen to own. And then when I get to the end of the session, most times I'll grab a neutral layer, whether you can see here, I've also used a brown layer. And then when she was nice and settled, I tucked in these cream colored curls because I know that I have a whole bunch of backdrops with these cream tone curls, and you don't have to use the exact same one. Something with a similar color toning really works so that when you get baby into the backdrop, the color casting on their skin will match, and you can blend because we're going to use part of this layer, which is one of my habits is to use the landing layer from baby's actual image, because as you can see, she's got the curls coming up over her elbow and tucked in here between her knees and elbow, and it just looks so much more believable if you use the layer that they've actually posed on. Again, just a little bit of planning ahead when you're in your session. And then an image like this that I took at the very end of the session, I think this was the second to last frame, I can take and create 4 different, completely different looks that mom can choose from within a few moments. So let's get started on that. We're going to select this baby off this backdrop, and I've got the quick select here. Just going to right click to turn that up a little bit, and I'm going to select around her. And I'm going to make sure I keep some of these curls in the selection because I'm going to use them. And that way I'll also have this shadow here that really helps with believability. A little bit more. And a little bit more here. Whoops. Click Alt to remove what you don't want selected. Okay, select a mask. I'm going to come on in here, see how we did with our layer mask. And obviously it's a little ragged around the edges. So I'm going to just take and include in my selection her hair, the edges of this headband, which again, if those are really rounded edges, it just kind of gives it away that you did a composite. So if you do this selection properly, you'll have the ragged edges of the headband and the little stray hairs, and that will make it look even more believable. So we'll just wait patiently for Photoshop to do its thing here. There we go, it's catching up. And I escaped out of there. Oh, Photoshop. Let's try that one more time. And again, I'm just leaving in this layer because we're going to use it when we get to the compositing. If we ever get there. Select a mask can take a while. Okay, so we're exporting or outputting to new layer with layer mask. And not to worry if the selection isn't exactly perfect, because we can tweak that a bit when we get her into the backdrop. So I'm going to grab her layer and I'm going to just drag and drop her into this backdrop. And as you can see, because I use similar tones, the color casting even on her back matches, because this backdrop, or this layer here, has a very similar color to this one here. Okay, so she's way too big, as you can see. That's Control T, and hold the Shift key as you reduce her size, and that maintains her aspect ratio so she doesn't go all wonky. Here, I'll show you what it looks like if you don't hold the Shift key. It can get a little funky. So always hold the Shift key, and that'll maintain your aspect ratio for you. Okay. That's a pretty good size. And unfortunately, I had that dark brown layer underneath, or this would have been a drag and drop type situation. Also, one thing to remember when you're using the quick selection tool, it always leaves a square around your selection, and it's easy to forget to remove that, and I have forgotten that many different times, so I'm just going to remove it now and make sure it's gone. Okay, I can see when we did the quick selection that a little too much came off right here, so I'm going to put it back by going to her layer mask and hitting the X key to come over to white and left bracket to turn down my brush and just add back in her hair, because we want her hair. And we do want the edge of her headband. I'm going to flip it back over just to remove a tiny bit to get that nice blend. And once we've done the work on her layer mask here, we won't have to do that same work when we get her into the other backdrops. Okay, so I'm just removing where she wouldn't have a layer in this backdrop because of the positioning of this prop. So I'm going to turn my brush down to about 30 and 38, And I'm just going to brush off the edges here so they blend in with the layer in the backdrop. I'll turn that up a little bit. Things are going to get a little funky around her arm here because I didn't have quite enough fluff layer when I was photographing her. She was not very settled at the end of her session. And this fluff kind of tickles, and so I know that was waking her up for sure. So I didn't want to fuss with it too much. Okay. So just gently going around the edges and blending her fluff with the fluff in the prop. And I definitely want to leave it in the back here, kind of as much as I can to get that shadowing that would appear. I'm going to flip over to the white to reveal her layer. It would be a little bit darker back there. All right, I'm going to hit the zoom, my magnifying glass, drag left to zoom out, and that is a very believable composite already. I think the one thing I would do, because this layer is quite a bit brighter, I'm going to add an adjustment layer. So I'm going to add levels, and then you can either hold the Alt key when you create a new layer, or you can just double click here and invert to hide. But I'm going to invert to show it while I'm making the levels adjustment. And I'm going to clip it to her so that it's not affecting the entire scene. So I'm just going to come left a bit to increase the midtones, and left a bit up here to increase the highlights, and a little bit in here for contrast. So without and with, and that really works. One last thing I'm going to do in this composite is I'm going to show you how to add a texture layer. Lots of people like this smooth, blended out, creamy background, and lots of people like a bit of texture back there. So if you're a person who likes texture, you can add texture. So I'm going to drag and drop it in here. And I'm going to Control T. I'm going to drag it across just the background. And then I'm going to overlay. And that's way too bright, contrasted. So I'm just going to turn it right down. And let's see, we might want to just darken this. Let's see what that looks like, or multiply. Oh, multiply might work a little bit better in this instance. I think darken might be it. Let's turn that up and see. You can play with your blend modes just as much as you like. Okay, we're going to add a layer mask to this so we can brush some of it away. Over to the black brush, and definitely going to brush it off of her. And then I'm going to use a big soft brush and just blend it with the floor. And again, this is just a little added feature if you want to add texture. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. I tend to like a little bit of texture. I'm going to flip over and add it back right a little bit. But that's a taste thing. I find it changes all the time too. Sometimes I want texture and everything, and sometimes I don't. So, without getting too carried away here, I think you get the idea. I've got baby in this backdrop and she's blended beautifully, and I've added the texture layer. You can take it out at any time. It really depends on what you want to do. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you how quickly, because you've done the work on her, is pick her up and drop her into these other backdrops. And maybe just a few small adjustments and you've got yourself 4 different looks. So I'm just going to grab onto her. Her layer mask will come with her. And we're going to plop her in here. She's too small for this one. So we're going to just raise up her size and change her orientation. And again, we've chosen this because it has the matching. Oh, see, some of that outline came with us. Let's remove that. It says it's this quick because we chose the same layer and a similar colored background. She is a little too bright for this, so I'm just going to add an adjustment layer and clip it to her and just bring her down a little bit. Not too much. And then increase the highlights a little bit so we have a nice contrast. Not too much. We don't need too much. And the only thing I can see being an issue here is a little haloing up here, and that's not a problem. So I'll go into her layer mask and remove that. And this didn't show in the last backdrop because the color she was photographed on and the backdrop color were nearly identical, so they just blended together. And the tan in this one is a little bit darker. But no problem. We'll just take it out. Okay, and we don't even have to really blend the layer again, and boom, we've got ourselves a second fully completed image for mom. So now we have 1, 2, and we're gonna grab her from the original one and bring her on over to this one. And we'll see just how quickly that goes. And again, this color is very similar to the color she was photographed on, so we shouldn't have much problem. She's squished up pretty good, so I think I'm going to reduce her down a bit. And that matches quite quickly. I'm going to hit the zoom key here, or magnifying glass. Okay, back to her layer. We might clean that up a tiny bit, but it does match so closely. Not really much to worry about there. And just like that, we have yet another option for mom. What I would do in this one is I would actually try to change the color of her headband to be a little bit closer to this clock. And that's because I'm a bit of a weirdo that way. I like to do things like that. So here's a quick way to do that. We're going to add a layer. I'm going to select color, the brighter color here in this clock. And then I'm going to paint bucket, add a layer mask. I held down the Alt key when I created that layer mask, and that hides everything. I'm going to go over to a brush tool. I'm going to select the color mode here on the layers palette. And I'm going to zoom in here and change the color of this headband. It's a little too bright. But I think I'm going to leave the color of these flowers. So let's see how it goes. And I might not even want it at 100% color change. I might turn the opacity down, but we'll see how we like it. And this is another way just to change up if you don't have a full gallery, or even if you do, just give yourself a little different look. And this way you can make new samples for your social media if you have mom's permission to use their baby in that way. And that can really help with new content if you're not super duper busy at any given time. I think I may go in and see about changing the color of these flowers. Why not? We're in here having color change fun. Not often you see these color tones, so it's just something a little bit different. Okay, we're zoomed back out. I'm always zooming in and out to see how things look. Oh, I actually really like that. I think I might just turn the opacity down. Maybe not. I think maybe it's just this one little spot that I'm not liking. So I'll turn my brush down and I'll just tweak that one little spot rather than remove the color altogether. Okay. Go back to my history there, undo that. I'm going to turn the brush down, turn flow and opacity down, and just come around and take out a bit of the peach behind here. The beauty of using a layer and layer mask for changing color of, say, a headband or whatever you're changing colors of is this. If you don't like it, you can always just click there, choose. I can't make words happen today. Choose another color, say blue. Doesn't matter. This is just for demonstration. And boom, now you have blue. Or you don't like that? Okay, no problem. We'll come in here. Now it's pink. So that's the reason why I use this method. And while I'm in here, because we've changed the color here, why not see if we can't get this color to show up on this brown down here? It probably won't be the same, but because we're starting with a dark color, but let's just see. And we can always decide to scrap it. It doesn't much matter if we don't like it. Don't have to get too matchy-matchy, but hey. Wanna have some fun. Add and remove as you see fit. Well, I am really liking this decision to change this layer color because it's an unusual thing to do, so why not? I'm going to remove it from there where I overpainted. And normally what I would have done was create another layer so that I can manipulate only this layer, but I didn't do that. So a workaround, because I want to reduce the opacity here, is I'm going to go back to my black brush, turn it down, and brush off some of this color because it's just a little too hot. Maybe not so much, but just come down and take a tiny bit off. There we go. I definitely like that. I'm going to zoom out here so you can see. And what a difference. Same image, same exact image as we used over here. Sorry, over here. But now we have a completely different image. And it's going to be up to what mom likes. And this way you can give her as many choices as you like, or both parents. Or if you're making samples for your social media, as I said, then you can take an image that's like this and then end up here and it looks like a new picture. So the last thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to drag her over into this one, and that'll be 4 different images that we've created here. So just going to grab her from here and bring her on over. Oh, she's so sweet. And I just wonder if we should try to color her headband yellow. Ideally for this backdrop you'd want a little bit more of a bum up pose, but I chose it because the landing layers match and I just wanted to show you what we were doing here. I might remove right here a little bit to blend in. First, I'm actually going to brighten her up though. So a layer adjustment and clip it to her and brighten her up. Okay. And then I'm actually going to add a curves layer here too. Oh, I forgot to clip it to her. Okay, very nice. So I'm just going to come in and blend this ever so gently and remove this here. Oops. So left bracket key to turn down my brush, bring the flow and opacity up to about 50 or so. And blend, blend, blend. I don't want to remove her whole layer that I photographed her on because it creates shadows and we need the shadows. You can always build shadows in Photoshop, but it's so much easier to do them in real life. Alright, let's remove that. So that makes sense. Blend, blend, blend in here. Just remove some of this back here. I'm going to turn this all the way up. We do have a bit of haloing on here because this backdrop is so much darker than our subject's backdrop was. So remove the haloing. That will be a dead giveaway for a composite every time. So it's important to remember those. I would did too much there, so flip back over and add it back. All right. She might be a little bit big, so Control T. Yeah, she's a little big for my liking. Okay, I'm going to come through here on her layer. I've chosen her layer because this is quite bright, this landing layer. And I'm just going to cheat a little bit and use the dodge tool and brighten it up right by her face without removing her layer. I got a little carried away there. It's a little too much, so I'm going to turn this down. Just a little bit goes a long way when it comes to dodge. There we go. Just a little bit goes a very long way. And while we're at it, I'm just going to burn around the edges of her to try to match a little bit better with the backdrop. So a nice big soft brush, and I'm just going to make sure I've selected her and come in and just darken up a little bit. There are lots of ways that you could be doing this, but I've chosen to do it this way. Okay, we're going to zoom out again. Show you before dodge and burn, and with, and so much better. That's just a far better blend. Okay, I'm really happy with all of these. So we've gone from here to here to here. She's a little small on this one. Let me increase that. And you might see things like that when you go back and you look, and that's okay. That's why I always leave my edits as layers. Yes, it takes up space on my hard drive, but it saves me having to go back and completely redo an edit. And so let's try that again. We've gone from here to here to here to here to here. And so that's going to give your client so many choices, and it's going to give yourself so many choices if you want to make some new samples, as I said. So I hope you learned something new in this tutorial, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Have yourselves a fantastic day.